Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody. Welcome to this very important Data for Policy conference in Seattle. I am recording this video because unfortunately at the last minute I couldn't make it to this very important conference, and I'm sorry for this, but I hope that this presentation will shed some light on IFAD, to introduce IFAD to those who do not know the institution, and most importantly to showcase the type of data and the type of evidence and knowledge that the Research and Impact Assessment Division of IFAD is producing. So let me share the screen and start the presentation. In this presentation, I will talk about the mission, the role of data, evidence, and knowledge of and the impact assessment that IFAD produce within its activities, research activities, applied research activities for policy, and also impact assessment. So first of all, I will just briefly remind to the audience what is IFAD and its corporate commitment. And then I'm gonna deep dive into the core mandate of RIA, and I will present two types of knowledge, data, and evidence for impact that RIA produce. The 50 by 2030 initiative, very briefly, and most importantly, the IFAD impact assessment, which is also the core part of the presentation of this today's session. The International Fund for Agricultural Development is halfway between an IFI and a UN agency. It is an international financial institution that provides low-interest loans and grants to developing countries, but has the core mandate, investing in agriculture, of a UN agency. We finance rural development projects and programs that enable the rural poor to improve the overarching goal of IFAD, which is improve economic mobility and income, and the three strategic objectives: improve productive capacity, improve access to market, and strengthening resilience through climate change adaptation. Together with a number of mainstreaming teams that is also relevant and important for the institution, such as food security, nutrition, but also gender. Because the institution is not owned by the government, as many of the IFI, but rely on voluntary contribution, producing knowledge using evidence for knowledge that support decision-making is of fundamental importance for continuing the existence and for attracting the interest of our donor. So, in the Research and Impact Assessment Division of IFAD, the RIA division, we produce two types of work. First of all, we produce research and data for development. We promote policy-driven research through primary and secondary data collected with the purpose of promoting development through evidence-based solution. An example of this is the 50 by 2030 initiative that we conduct with FAO and the World Bank. In addition to that, and most importantly for this conference, we conduct an impact assessment using a rigorous econometric analysis to measure the impact that IFAD project has on beneficiaries, and that ultimately produce evidence feeding the design of new projects and programs, but also the international policy debate. Therefore, RIA generates knowledge and evidence use for producing, with the aim of producing in evidence-informed decision-making, but also knowledge translation. And this contributes the knowledge translation of focusing on the second area of work of IFAD, which is supporting capacity development. Because within the research and data for development activities, within the impact assessment activities, we also try to create capacity to do technical assistance and to train the future generation of policymakers who will use data, research, knowledge, and evidence in their decision-making. So let's look a little bit and very briefly to the 50 by 2030 initiative. This is a partnership for data smart agriculture to strengthen national agricultural data system in 50 countries, low and low middle income countries by 2030. It is an initiative that we conduct through the, thanks to the support of a number of donors with two sister agencies, FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization, and the World Bank, C4D2 Center that is located in Rome. Why we do that? To bridge agricultural data gaps and promote evidence-informed decision-making. How do we do that? By developing a fit-for-purpose, integrated and financially sustainable agriculture and rural survey program that meets country data needs and foster a culture of data use for decision-making. The initiative is composed of three components: the data production, the method and use, and the data use component. While FAO and the World Bank are responsible for the first two, and I will very briefly again introduce them, IFAD support the data use component, namely, in a nutshell, to make sure that the data that have been produced in 50 countries by 2030 are also used, not only used for internal decision, but also to monitor progresses towards 2030. So what is the cycle of the 50 by 2030? We go from the data production, the input is the data production and the output is the data use. This circular approach allows to, first of all, submit and collect data in countries. The surveys are designed, planned, and collected with the support of the country. Then data are clean, prepared for the analysis, and this is the phase of the processing of the data. Then comes the part of the analysis itself. The data are examined to try to answer to specific policy questions. After the data are analyzed, the data are disseminated, interpreted, and used. And this is what the 50 by 2030 data use component conducted in IFAD, and in particular in RIA, is responsible for. We do that through a 3C approach that I will present shortly. Where do we work? We have already onboarded 14 countries, mainly most of them are located in Africa. We are already engaging in 9 countries: Cambodia, Ethiopia, Georgia, Malawi, Mali. So you see, we moved to APR, to Asia and the Pacific region. And we will onboard 15 more countries from the fiscal year 2024 onward. As you can see, this initiative is concentrated in Africa and the Asia and the Pacific area. How is the data production organized? The survey uses a rotating thematic module, and therefore we have 4 types of module: the core agriculture module, the income, labor, and productivity, production methods and tools, and environment, and last, machinery, equipment, and assets. As you can see, this is a comprehensive agriculture analysis of the agriculture that has never been implemented in any of the available agriculture survey in the world, and will allow to have detailed data to monitor progresses towards the SDGs. But in addition to submitting a questionnaire to collect data, we also make sure through applied research and survey methods and tools and data integration that the tools that we use to collect the data are the best and the one at the frontier. And this is why the World Bank is involved in this initiative through the methods and tools component. Last but not least, the data use approach conducted by IFAD, which is a 3C approach: communication, collaboration, and capacity enhancement. It is a circular approach, it's a circle, so we look at the individual, and we have 3 types of individual: the decision maker, the data producer, and we need a data intermediary that allows to go from the data producer to the decision maker to make sure that those data are then used. So we use policy engagement, awareness raising, and promotion and advocacy to to make sure that there is communication. Then through country data communities, partnership building and participatory problem solving, we look at collaboration. Training, research grant competition and technical assistance allow us to invest in capacity enhancement. So we start with how do we do that in practice, at the implementation phase? We do a rapid data needs assessment with the Ministry of Agriculture. The data use implementation plan for the Ministry of Agriculture is implemented, and we conduct fundamental statistical training on data interpretation. We do practical training workshop to build collaboration between stakeholders. Data consultant work with Ministry of Agriculture for sustained support to data use activities are conducted, and specialized demand-driven knowledge, product, and tools are developed for the Ministry of Agriculture. Then we obtain a modified ecosystem mapping and assessment to understand the enablers and the barriers to data use, and to identify strategic partners for the 50 by 2030. This is more of a partnership and networking activities that we conduct, and collaboration, which is done by training local researchers, partnership with local organization, and contributing to creating a data communities, a network of data communities. This is, in a nutshell, the 50 by 2030. Impact assessment, which is the second area of work of IFAD. Why do we do an impact assessment? For credibility, for accountability, for learning, and to set target and ambition. Starting in 2015, IFAD decided to link targets to goal. And during the last replenishment period, for the period between 2019 and 2021, we promised to our member states, the main donors of IFAD, to improve the well-being of 44 million people, which is our overarching goal, and also to pursue and to support 47 million people to increase their production, which is our first strategic objective, increase market access for 46 million people, which is our second strategic objective, and then improve resilience for 24 million people, which is our third strategic objective, and also to improve nutrition for 12 million people. By linking targets to goal, we are forced to conduct rigorous analysis to be for accountability and transparency vis-a-vis of our donor, and to see whether our goals, the promise we made, have been met. So impact assessment, corporate level impact assessment, is fundamental to track progresses towards corporate target, to justify funding to an institution that supports development. It is important as an important source of accountability to donors and client countries that are providing funds for development. And at the project level, impact assessment generates knowledge that is used to design new projects and also to supervise implementation. How do we measure impact? We use the concept of attribution. While attribution is the ability to claim that an impact of an indicator, of an outcome variable, is the result of an investment, and in this case, it is thanks to the project financed or co-financed by IFAD that we were able to obtain this impact. Contribution is an area of work where the M&E, monitoring and evaluation system, are involved. And M&E is aimed at monitoring key indicators and determining whether the indicator is changing in the desired direction. And this is as a result of the investment. So how do we conduct an impact assessment? In each replenishment period, every 3 years, we conduct a rigorous impact assessment on at least 15% of IFAD's portfolio using ex post quasi-experimental methods. We compute the impact for each project. Say that in 3 years, we have 100 projects completing within this period. We take at least 15%. This is equivalent of 15 projects. We conduct a rigorous ex post impact, quasi-experimental impact assessment on each of them, and we compute the impact of these projects on the economic mobility of the beneficiaries, income, increase productive capacities, market participation, resilience, nutrition, women empowerment, and climate change adaptation. As you can see, those are the major areas of the SDG and also the major policy questions for many institutions involved in development and agriculture and rural transformation. Once this impact assessment on each individual project is conducted, we combine the results using a meta-analysis and a projection exercise to report the overall impact of IFAD projects on its beneficiaries over each replenishment period. Why do we do that? Again, for corporate reporting, accountability, and improved future project design based on rigorous evidence. So we create knowledge with research output. Again, to summarize the process, every 3 years, at the end, when the portfolio of projects is completing, we review the portfolio, the number of type of projects that are closing within the replenishment period. We select randomly 15% of the portfolio. In the past, we used to have a protocol. Now we move to random selection. Even though random selection is extremely challenging, it has a number of reasons that we control for sensitivity analysis. We estimate the impact across selected projects. We conduct a meta-analysis and projection to the portfolio, and we're able to estimate the number of people that were impacted. We compare this number with the one that we promised to achieve at the beginning of the replenishment period. And so this is called accountability vis-a-vis of donor, because we're able to say whether we met the target, we did not, and if we did not, what happened and what can be done in the future to do better. So, ex post impact assessment, how are they done? As you know, impact assessment, ex post, quasi-experimental methods. At the end of the projects, we go in the country, we take a sample, random sample of beneficiaries from the entire listing. This is our treatment group. And then we identify another group of individuals, the so-called control group, that is similar to the treated, in our case, our beneficiaries, except for the fact that they didn't receive the project of IFAD. The difference in the outcome variable between the treated and control is our measure of impact. To conduct an impact assessment with a quasi-experimental approach, we need to invest a lot in the selection of the control group. So the control group needs to be carefully identified to be a robust counterfactual. We implement a two-state approach. We first look at the communities, district, and village, and then we deep dive into control households in selected area. We use the same targeted criteria as the project, and therefore our matching variable are poverty, gender, catchment area, or irrigation or market. What are the fundamental questions that we ask? Are there areas that were considered but not treated due to financial constraints? Are there areas identified already that will be included later? What are the data sources to select areas by matching at district community level? So we look at national census, agriculture census, or other national representative data to make sure that the control group that we are selecting is the most appropriate one. What are the variables that we will collect and that will represent our impact domain, and what are the indicators that they represent? So, as a proxy for income, producing, processing, and marketing agri-food product, wage, business, and transfer, we use income by source, amount of sources of sales, cost of production, number of labor days per type of activity. As a proxy for production and productivity, we use yield and revenues or input use. For market access, we look at value and share of total production market, at access to input, access to credit, insurance, and information. For resilience, we look at the income diversification indices, but also subjective ability to recover from shocks, which is our major measure of resilience or adaptation. On food security, we use both the household dietary diversity index, but also the food insecurity experience scales. We complement our analysis by collecting GIS indicators, georeference data, vegetation indices, rainfall and temperature, drought, flood, occurrence and intensity, distance to market, water, city, population density, etc. Additional indicators are women's empowerment. With IFPRI, we have developed the IWEA, and you will have a presentation today. We collect also data on persons with disabilities. To look at other dimensions of welfare, we look at subjective well-being and MPI, multi-poverty indices, and we also collected data on COVID-19 exposure and impact. We also collect all other indicators that are project specific and are identified based on each project's goals and theory of change. We also use GIS data. Example are rainfall, temperature, rainfall at 5 kilometer resolution, temperature at 1 kilometer resolution, vegetation indices as 250 resolution, and we define relevant agroclimatic shock for each case, long-run variation in critical variables for agroecological zone, crop or growth phase in each case, recent and recurrent shock experience that affect incentives, and this is a proxy for adaptation, and current year variables that affect productivity. So in a nutshell, this is IFAD, and this is RIA and the way we generate knowledge, evidence, and data. In this last slide, you can have access to all the information that we produce if you are interested in working with us or to learn more about us. And the rest will be presented here in this session today that will focus most importantly on the evidence that has been generated by our impact assessment activities, in particular those that has been conducted recently in the replenishment as part of the replenishment period 2019-2021. The rest, please follow us in IFAD, and we are happy to work together. Thank you for your attention.